This is the meeting after the meeting. None of our participants get paid, and we don't speak for Alcoholics Anonymous. Enjoy the show.
This.
I feel like I'm in. Is that movie with Antonio Banderas? A little desperado action, like
carrying around a guitar case.
I don't know why.
Machine
gives me that vibe. Yeah, it's like happy. It seems happy, and then he pulls a machine gun out of his guitar case and just kills like 10 people.
Starts shredding. It's good vibe.
It's very happy.
Yeah.
El reunión, después del reunión.
Gabe.
Bienvenidos.
I like
Gabe,
it.
where are you from?
I was born in New York. No, my family is Venezuelan.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. That's the Spanish. I like it.
It is. Yeah.
I like it. This is good. Chris, how you doing today?
Good.
Yeah?
Feel good. Sliding into episode 11, is it?
Yeah.
All right. Over the hump.
It's pretty good.
We're on the back 10.
I like it. The second half of the first season, we haven't told people, I don't think we're doing 20 episodes.
20 episodes.
For the first season, so.
Which is sort of a function of the Zoom webinar.
Yes, we'll get into that later, but at some point we're going to be changing the Zoom webinar, so if you are watching, you'll need to get the new link, which we'll put out. We'll put it out.
It'll be, on the link tree, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just go there.
Well, let's get into it. This is the meeting after the meeting. I'm John.
I'm Chris.
Welcome to the show. As Chris said, this is episode 11. We are excited to be here. We've got a great lineup tonight. Great guests, great weekly topic, great newcomer tip, sketch of the week. We are loaded up here tonight. Why don't we introduce Gabe, our producer. Gabe, how are you tonight?
Doing well.
Yeah, how's your week been?
Good. We had a good weekend. Chris and I had some sets Saturday night.
That's right.
Threw down some beats.
Yeah.
I heard it was a successful event.
Yeah. Overall, it was really good. Chris went first.
Yeah,
so
I
he
opened.
didn't. Yeah, he opened, and then he left immediately because he's very old. So he didn't hear my set or Brent's set. Or
Is he very old, or is he just older than
old enough?
Yeah.
Old enough to leave when he did.
to want to leave at like 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
To be in bed by 11.
In all fairness, I was the opener for the youngsters, and it was their night. I wanted them to. I didn't want to outshine them.
You want to get out of the way.
Yeah, I want to get out of the way, let them have the stage.
Gabe, how'd you do? Did you get some feedback from people on your set?
Yeah, I mean, the people in AA overall are pretty nice. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a good set, though. It was fun.
That's good. Glad.
He didn't record it though.
I didn't record it. And then, dude, on the drive home, it was awful, but I hit a goose on Rockville Pike.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I was in shock.
They
My girlfriend was following me, and I didn't want to stop because I thought she was going to hit me. And then I hit the goose.
Geese, they won't move. They're not like other birds where they'll like fly out of the way. They just
And they're
kinda,
big. I mean,
and they're
it could do
big,
some
yeah.
Did it do any damage?
No.
Wow.
No,
They
it
don't
didn't do
weigh
anything.
Just feathers.
No, it didn't do
They don't
anything.
weigh that much. How do they fly? And you can't fly if you're big. Man. Oh man. All right. Well, Chris, how are you? How's your week been?
It's good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. I mean,
You can't fly if you're big.
you can't fly if you weigh a lot.
Those are facts.
You know, you want to get into
Let's get into it.
gravity? What? All right. We got a great guest on tonight's show. He came from far away from Frederick, Maryland. He's looking very Frederick tonight, I'll say. Let's introduce our guest, Karl O.
How you guys doing? My name's Karl Otto. I'm an alcoholic.
Oh, wait, there it is. They love you, Karl. We got the clap. How's it going, man?
It's going good.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad you're here.
So for those who don't know, before the show, he was wearing a hoodie and he was like, "Man, it's hot in here." Like,
well, and then he said, "John, do you have a shirt that I can wear?" And I was like, "You're a little bit bigger than me. You're not much bigger than me." And I was like, "Maybe." And then one of you guys was like, "He's got a
black tank on.
He's got a tank underneath of it."
I said, "Dude, that's the most Frederick thing ever.
It's
Go ahead
very
and rock it."
If you're from around here, you know what we're talking about. If you're not from around here, Frederick is a little bit more country, I would say, than where we are now. Not by that much anymore.
Not
if,
much.
If we dropped you off in downtown Frederick, you wouldn't know. But it used to be super country, and around Frederick is a lot of farmland and country. So we like that you're representing the Frederick, and you're like, and you know what? You're a staple
I love
in Frederick,
the historic area. Frederick's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Good AA.
You're a staple up there in Frederick in the AA community. Anybody I know, even new guys who get out of treatment, if they've spent any time in Frederick, I always ask them if, I say, I know a guy up there, you should connect with Karl. They're like, I know Karl already, So we're happy you're here and glad you could join us on the show. We're looking forward to hearing some of your experience, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So why don't we start out by getting into what we call the stats, just some of your basic info.
Okay, my name is Karl Otto. I'm an alcoholic, like I said earlier. My sobriety date is January 15th of 2014, so I just celebrated 9 years in January.
Nice.
My sponsor's name is
not
John.
Your first sobriety date either, right?
No. I'm definitely a retread. I've been in and out of AA for a long time. My home group we're starting a new meeting in Frederick called the Jaywalkers Group.
Oh, okay.
All right.
It's a Saturday night speakers meeting.
Yeah.
And very excited about that.
Yeah.
I like it.
We're going to get you guys up there for sure.
We'd be happy to come out. Love to come out there.
Love to.
Yeah. My sponsor's name is John Edmonds. He's in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, we know him.
Yep.
Yeah. And I sponsor a bunch of guys, kind of the basics,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
That's great, man. That's awesome.
I remember. So Karl and I mean, because you first got sober. When was your first sobriety date?
I don't even remember. I've been in and out.
Well,
so
the
many
one,
times.
but you were sober when I was new.
Yep.
And I don't know what happened, but somehow I got up there and I was speaking at one of those meetings. We exchanged numbers, and then over the years, we would just pass new guys back and forth that were coming in and out of like treatment and rehab. Because I would go to the pre-release center or Avery Road, and people would get out and they're like, "Wow, I live in Frederick." I'm like, "All right, you got to call Karl, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hit him up, you know." And I'd send guys up to you, and you'd send guys down here that were getting out of treatment. That's how it was with us for a little while.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
It still happens a lot too.
still happens. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come down or up. I know people from down here go up there for meetings, and you guys come down here for meetings. So it's nice to have that in their local AA community here. So we'd love to hear a little bit about your story. We have a segment here we call the 3 W's, where we want to hear a little bit about what you were like, what happened, and what you're like now. So feel free to get right into it and tell us about some of the good parts, man. The fun.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll try to stick to the clock here. There's a story I like to tell that really, in my opinion, describes alcoholism for me, and the effect that it had on me, the way it made me feel. As far back as I can remember, I always felt uncomfortable in my own skin. I always felt like something was missing. I felt like I couldn't, be comfortable talking to you or talking to anybody. I just always had this, constantly thinking about what you were thinking of me. And alcohol changed that for me, And so this story illustrates that effect pretty well, I think. And it's kind of funny too. So, but when I was in 8th grade, I dated this girl named Melissa Gundry. And I'm waiting to run into her somewhere because I tell this story all the time. And I'm going to tell the story sometime. And she's going to pop out. I know. And she's going to be like, "Dude, you need to stop telling that story." But in 8th grade, I dated her. And she was a little rough around the edges. People called her Melissa Grungy. I don't know. I guess they didn't see the inner beauty that I saw. And we broke up 2 weeks later. It was a typical, middle school relationship.
That's a long one in middle school. 2 weeks. You're like, ooh, getting serious.
Forever.
Yep. That's as far as I could make it, man. Because I was so scared, right? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, shortly after that, her and her family moved to a town. I grew up in New Hampshire. I don't know if I said that or not, but I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. So this tank top is very fitting for where I come from. I grew up in cow fields and, very country up there. Yeah. When I moved down this way, it was like, holy crap. Like there's 2 lanes on one road. This is, wild. I didn't see her for a few years. And one night, I think it was in 10th grade, my buddy Trevor Thompson picked me up. He was a little older than me, and we had these plans to go to this party at some college in Keene, New Hampshire. And so we were all excited, and we got some Jack Daniels, and we started drinking. And we went and picked up these 2 girls, and, we were just all excited to go, hang out with these chicks and, drink and party a little bit. And so we're like half in the bag already, and we pull into Keene, New Hampshire. We pull into this gas station, and I hop out. I'm going to go inside and grab something. And as I'm getting out of the truck, I look over, and it's Melissa Gundry, the girl I dated in 8th grade. But she doesn't look the same. I mean, she's gone through puberty now, and she's got, wearing a really tight skirt, really tight top, just drop dead gorgeous. I always say she's like the ugly duckling from high school. And
I hope you don't run into her.
I hope she doesn't run into this podcast. No. Hey, we're complimenting. You're complimenting.
Right? Well, she was gorgeous, right? She looked really good. And she was driving this brand new 3000 GT with the shiny rims, and I just remember walking up, and I had some Jack Daniels in me. If I was sober, I wouldn't even be able to say hi, But I was feeling pretty good, so I walked up to her and I said, "Hey, baby, how you doing? How you been? I haven't seen you in a while." And we were chatting it up, and it was cool. I thought it was going pretty good. And then next thing you know, this dude walks out of the gas station, and he's like 6'4". He's huge. He looks like a linebacker on a football team. I mean, this guy's massive. And he's got a really deep voice. I can't even emulate how he said it. He's like, "Yo, you talking to my girl?" And I just turned and I just jabbed him right upside the face. I punched him upside the face, put him in a headlock, slammed his head off of her car, dented the fender. And, my buddy Trevor was like, "Yo, get in the car. The cops are coming." So I ran over, jumped in the car. He skirted off. The 2 girls in the back are hyping me up. They're like, "Yo, you're amazing." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm amazing." I'm just hyped. And so I always tell that story because it gives me that confidence. You know what I mean? Alcohol gave me that confidence. I could fight the guys. I could, talk to the girls. I didn't care what anybody thought about me. And I'll finish the story with, it was so funny because I shared this story at a meeting, and a guy raised his hand after I said that story, and he said, "Hey," he said, "that was a funny story." He said, "But I would have liked to seen what really happened that night." And it dawned on me right there. I said, "Man, you know what? You're right. He probably wasn't that big." You know what I mean? He was probably your size or something. No offense, but
probably a little dude.
And she probably wasn't that good looking. You ever wake up the next morning and look over and go, "What did I do last night?"
Yeah. Or I'll wake up in a jail cell and be like, "What did I do?
That's more.
What did I get arrested for? See if I have the paperwork. Is it a DWI? Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that story. What it was like. I mean, it was a train wreck. It was. I remembered times like that. The fun times, the parties and all that stuff. But really, at the end, it was really bad. And I knew I was an alcoholic from very early on in my life. I grew up in a very alcoholic family on both sides, and it just got really bad really quick. And so that's what it was like. I mean, I could go deeper, but I think
no, you're good, man. Let's we love hearing the fun stories in the beginning and the gas station with the girls. What was it like at the end, though? What was it like when the girls weren't there anymore in the back seat, hanging out, and you were kind of alone? Because I know for me, I ended up being very alone. Not just physically alone.
Starts with the party.
Yeah, emotionally alone. And feeling alone. What was where your drinking was fun? Where did it get you to, though, at the end?
Well, at the end, there was several ends, like we talked about earlier. My first end, I was 20 years old. I had gotten my second DUI, a bunch of other, minor drug charges and stuff like that. So, what did it look like? I mean, I barely skated through high school. I couldn't keep a place to stay. Parents had kicked me out. I was crashing on couches and stuff like that. Every day was like Groundhog's Day. Every day I was waking up in the morning trying to figure out how I was going to get drunk, how I was going to get high. And I was telling myself this story every time. I'd say, I'm gonna wean myself off. It's gonna be different tomorrow, and it was never different. And my dad actually 12-stepped me into the program. He's been sober 30 years now. He's still a member of AA. He's down in Florida, and he 12-stepped me. He dragged me down here to Frederick, Maryland, where I live now. And he was my Ebby Thatcher, if you know like the AA history.
This was your first time in AA.
My first time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could say that was, I stayed. Yeah. And that's probably when I started meeting you guys, coming down to DC.
It's around 02, 03, 04.
Mm-hmm. How old were you at that time?
I was 20 years old when I came in the first time.
So you were 20 years old, you got dragged to AA. What was the situation? What was, were you hopeless yet, or were you not there? What kind of got you to stick around, and how long did you stick around that first time?
I would say I definitely was hopeless. And I was ready and I was willing, but it wears off quickly, and 6 months in, I just stopped, my sponsor says sometimes, he'll say it's hard to convince, he was 18 when he got sober, but it's hard to convince an 18-year-old that they need a spiritual solution to their problem.
Yeah. And
it was very hard for me to accept a spiritual solution for my alcoholism. I thought if I sober up for 6 months, if I dry out, get the consequences off my back, I'll be able
change some of the external circumstances.
Yeah, get some of those external things back.
Yeah.
Or get the things I never had: the car,
Yeah.
the girl, the job, or off probation.
But it's natural to think that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you were raised that way. Normally, normal people think, here are these things I need to be happy. You watch TV, you watch movies and shows. I mean, you see it, it's all around you.
Mm-hmm.
So one would think that if I'm unhappy drinking, if I change these external things, go to the gym, work out, get a better job, then I'll be happy and I won't have to drink.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So did you start trying to fix the spiritual problem, and did you get better, and or would you do kind of what we talked about? You kind of were hanging around AA, weren't really in.
Yeah, I think I would go out pretty quick. I would stay I stayed sober the first time, I think for about 6 months, and I wasn't excited about the steps, the 12 steps. I wasn't excited about trying to create or maintain a relationship with a higher power. I wasn't, really excited about going to hang out with a bunch of AA people. I would go to the meetings because I knew I had to, right? Like I knew I had alcoholism. I knew I...
Check the box.
Yeah, exactly. But I really thought and I heard this is kind of funny, but I treated the steps like they were extra credit, and I had to learn that lesson the hard way.
That's a good newcomer tip of the week. The steps aren't extra credit. It's something that we think, it's like, oh, I'm here. I'm at the meeting. What else do you want from me?
Right.
Dad, I'm sure for you, it was like, hey, I'm here at the meeting.
Yeah.
And
your staying power when you're new is so small. You can't, if you're an alcoholic, my type, and you cannot survive on the ridiculous social outlets that are in AA. How long are you going to survive going to the diner, going to AA dances? I was like, this is terrible. Mm-hmm. It's almost, if you're not working the steps, it seems almost like a cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah. So you mentioned coming in and out. What kind of, and I think the what happened part sounds like you said, there's many different kind of what happened moments for you. If you were going to kind of summarize the what happened, what was it that eventually made you be interested in maybe doing something different, or what happened this last time to kind of get you willing?
I'll tell you the grand finale. You know, and this story is, it's. I heard this guy say recently, and I love this. He said, you know, in AA, when you hear somebody telling their story, the person telling the story is no longer the person that's in the story, right? The transformation that happens. So when I tell this story, and when people meet me, they're like, there's no way that was you. But long story short, I bounced in and out of the rooms at AA for 9 years. And I was on another 1.5 year sober stretch. Life was really good. I had a really good job. I was making really good money. I had all the things, and I was engaged. And, you know, I went to the dentist, and they said, you have to have your wisdom teeth pulled out. And I remember getting excited. I was like, sweet, sign me up. And that's how wild the disease of alcoholism is, because I didn't even realize that I was excited to get surgery so that I could get the painkillers after the surgery. And so I went in, I got my surgery, and I went home, and it was like a party, right? It was like I got a free excuse to pop some Percocets. And I had a sponsee tell me one time that's called a free lapse, you know, but it's not.
It's not free.
Not free. And so I took 5, and I remember
Just right out of the gate,
right
you
out
took
of the
5.
gate, yeah.
See, I mean, that wasn't a free lapse. You knew.
Oh my God! And
In that moment, you knew you relapsed. It was like, you weren't like, this is all right.
Yeah.
I thought I could get away with it. I thought, man, I can go with the weekend. It was funny because my fiance at the time, she was normal. You know, she was not an alcoholic, and so she comes home, and I'm already half in the bag. You know, and she's like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
this guy is whacked out." And so, you know, Monday morning, I went to work after finishing that whole bottle over the weekend, and it was like, this is kind of, you know, something I use as an example of. You know, I heard alcoholism is like having sex with a gorilla. You don't stop until the gorilla says it's time to stop, you know? And I don't know if that's true or not. I've never had sex with a gorilla, but...
Is this the second time we've heard this?
Somebody else said that somewhere.
This week, John.
Where else did we hear that?
KYP. John.
Was it?
Yeah. 2
Ah,
weeks
okay.
ago.
that was mine.
All right.
That was mine. He got that from
Okay.
me.
All right.
Okay.
Somebody, yeah.
All right.
Karl, somebody's spreading that word around, whatever.
I got that from Adam T out in California.
Okay.
He did a
All
roundup
right.
for us a few years ago. But
Yeah.
but it's so true, right? Like, it's like, you know, the phenomenon of craving, the mental obsession, it was on me, you know, and I went to work Monday morning and I was like, man, I got to get some more. And, you know, I talk about...
I'm sure your mouth hurt too because you're out of painkillers.
Oh, of course. I know.
blew through all the painkillers. Like,
It did. And it was justification, you know?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I
I
think
need
I
more.
called doctors and, you know, I found a guy at work who could get me some pills and, you know, and we talk about stuff like that in AA, right? And it's like kind of like that gray area. Like, do I talk about drugs? Do I not? And I think, you know, like my sponsor said, you know, it's okay to talk about them, but you know, I can tell when the line's been crossed, you know, and anyway, so I drank very hard, but I also did a lot of drugs very hard. And, so I went out on a 9-month spree, from that one, you know, bottle of pills. And, for 9 months, I, you know, went really hard in the paint. You know, I started,
cross some more lines.
yeah.
And I'm sure the girl you were with, your fiance, that's done or what? I mean,
Yeah.
That
was over.
ended.
That's, yeah.
because she probably never seen you.
Did you lose the job? You were making money.
Lost the job.
We could already. This is the funny part about alcoholics. We're so simple, and we're all the same that we can almost already predict exactly what happened.
You could
Lost the
probably
girl,
tell, yeah.
lost the job.
Yeah.
Maybe even got arrested.
maybe in that weekend.
You know? Yeah, exactly. You could lose all of them real quick.
It doesn't take long.
No, it doesn't.
I
a
held
short
on for a
runaway.
while this time.
Yeah.
You know, I did. I held on for 9 months, you know, and she rode with me and she was going, man, what is wrong with this guy? You know, and she was trying to help me and
Start lying more.
God,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
I went to a treatment center in California, stayed for 12 days, and I left with, you know, AMA.
Yeah.
And the reason I left was because I was like, I've been to AA before. I know what to do. I'm going to go back home and get plugged in. And within 3 days after that, I was, you know, ripping and running again. And the end of that story is it was January 9th of 2014. It was 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. I got pulled over by Frederick Police Department. And when they told me to roll my windows up, turn my car off, and they had K9s and undercovers everywhere. I put the car in drive and took them for a high-speed chase.
Whoa.
In, downtown Frederick, baby.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go.
And, I was like, I had a handgun,
Yeah.
because I was dealing with some shady characters. I didn't want to get robbed. So I was carrying that. I had a bunch of stuff in my car.
Yeah.
And I threw the drugs out the window. I remember I threw the dope out the window. It came in the back window and landed in the door.
Oh my
luck.
God!
You went from being like a normal guy to like a drug dealing
What
kingpin in like
happened,
9
dude?
months running. Wow.
Dude,
All
so
right.
I was on the front page of the newspaper and on the
yes.
news, and they said heroin kingpin.
Oh my God.
Which was not the
that's
truth.
great. Yeah,
Said,
no.
from my own
That's
experience,
great.
there's a lot of exaggeration
That's
going
yeah.
on.
From your experience, I want to
Yeah.
hear about that.
Another time. Yeah.
So that was the grand finale, right? That was the event that happened that took away all of my my thinking that I can figure out how to stay sober by myself, and it completely leveled me. It completely, brought me to a place of desperation that I've never been in my life, and I was willing to do whatever you told me to do, and that was such a blessing for me. And I showed up to treatment. I did 30-day treatment program in Emmitsburg, Mountain Manor, and I just got,
Was that your first arrest?
that was not my first arrest. It was my first arrest in a long time. It had been 9 years since I had been arrested.
Pretty serious one too. Yeah.
Went out with a bang.
Yeah, they're not messing around. Yeah. You're not getting.
Was that federal?
You're not getting a
Was that
year
federal?
probation.
Wasn't
You
federal.
know.
No, it wasn't federal.
All right. Do you have a license for the handgun?
I did. It was registered, but when you have
Okay.
drugs, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At that point.
It's not a good look.
No.
So you were, as we like to say, brought to your knees. You had become
Nudge
hopeless
from the judge.
Yeah, you get out the nudge from the judge,
on.
and you found AA. What was it like this time getting in? You mentioned being willing to do things. What did you start doing that you think now would be things you would recommend to people when they get sober?
Yeah, the first thing that happened to me is I got a program called Drug Court,
Okay.
which is important to some degree because sometimes people ask me, like, what happened? You get some pretty serious charges. And so I got Drug Court, but that had really not a lot to do with my sobriety. People would take meetings.
Had a lot to do with your charges.
It had a lot to do with my charges. And it kept me on track. So it was good for me. It kept me accountable. I had to go pee in a cup. I had to check in. And
For
all
those that are
stuff.
listening that don't know what that is, it's sort of an alternative we have in our area for drug offenders. Rather than locking them up, and it's a great program, rather than locking them up and throwing away the key, they give you a shot,
Yeah.
but you're closely monitored.
I remember people in jail were like, dude, don't do Drug Court. It's a setup. I'm like, yeah, because you want to try to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Not if you want to get sober. It's a good
Yeah,
deal.
it is. It is. But, to answer your question, I mean, and this is, I sometimes I feel like we share from a place of like taking credit for it. Like I made a decision to start working the steps and, join a home group and get into service. I can't take credit for that.
Yeah.
I was given a gift that I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous, that I coming here and doing AA is not difficult for a guy like me. And I'm so grateful for that. And that's a gift, and a lot of people don't have that experience.
I agree 100%.
And, I got to work, I got a sponsor, I worked the steps, I got involved. It was like, if anybody said, hey, can you be part of this committee? Can you, help with this group? Whatever it is, I was in, because I knew my life depended on it. And I would say for the last 9 years, for the most part, I've stayed pretty consistent that time. And I think that's the key to long-term sobriety, right? It's not giving up 6 months later, a year later when life starts getting better. And the other part of alcoholism that really was good for me to learn was that if I don't treat my alcoholism with the steps and with the fellowship and with AA, I become very, very miserable in my sobriety.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of my most miserable times were sober.
Stone cold sober.
I don't want to say sober, but I was dry, without a drink, without a drug, and I wanted to die.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a great point, that just come, something I've heard people say this, sometimes just sitting around AA for a while, not doing anything is a really good test for if I'm an alcoholic, because I start to get really restless.
Yep.
Yeah. Like if you can just go to meetings, and hang out once in a while and your life keeps getting better.
Mm-hmm. You might not. Yeah.
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 I mean, long-term sobriety, I always say that it's, my sobriety has always been a series of recommitments, and it's it's never a straight line up. I mean, there's always sort of like ebbs and flows, and thank God I've always leaned into AA and not leaned out. And you had a good point, man. I have also been given that gift of like wanting this, wanting to be a part of AA and really buying the whole package right out of the gate. And I think that is, I can't explain that. I don't know what did that, really. I mean, and I see that it is very hard for some people,
The great part, though, is you don't have to have that for AA to work.
You don't.
That is the great part, because a lot of people come in and they're not happy to be here. They really wish they could be anywhere else than with us in a church basement on a Friday night where we're laughing at dumb AA jokes, But if you take the actions, the results tend to come regardless of if you are super happy to be there or not.
Absolutely. So. I sponsor a guy, and for the first year and a half, he was just bare minimum, go to some meetings, kind of check the boxes type of guy. And I brought him to a retreat that we do every year. It's a men's retreat. And the first retreat he went to, nothing happened. Went right back to his kind of normal routine. Second retreat he went to, for some reason he was going through some stuff in his life at the time, and I watched him completely change. He was around 2 years sober, I think, somewhere around that area. And he was all of a sudden he's sponsoring like half of Frederick, and he's speaking at treatment centers.
It's such a cool thing to watch, man.
So cool.
So cool.
It's a gift.
It's a gift, man.
That's one of those gifts.
To see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So speaking of that, let's move on to our topic, and I think we can hear a little bit about what your life is like today and your sobriety. Our topic this week is a much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. How do you take the principles into all areas of your life? And this is, the first sentence there is directly from the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought this was a great kind of thing to talk about, because a lot of us, I think people come into AA and they think that going to the meeting, showing up at the meeting, and, doing service at the meeting is AA. That's it, and they forget, or they don't understand that this is a way of life. And it says very clearly right here, a much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. And none of those happen during the AA meeting for the most part.
Yeah.
So, Chris, why don't we start with you? What does this look like for you today in your life? And how did you realize this? Because I know you're like me. We all came into AA and we're still idiots,
Yeah, I mean, I acted like a child even though I was 30. So, it's just a much more important part, but it's also harder. I mean, it's very, for me to act like a civilized human being out there in the world took a lot of work in AA, and it didn't happen quickly. It took years for me to take an inventory, make amends, change the way I was living in a lot of those relationships. And to some extent, it is still going on. I mean, it's one of the reasons I know I'm still an alcoholic is that if I really take an inventory of some of the relationships in my life and how I'm behaving, I can see very clearly that there's still work that needs to be done, Now, am I different than I was? For sure. I was so, if I could have been honest with myself, I would have been ashamed of the way I was living. And my father, who passed away when I was 15, I knew he would be ashamed, because he was a great man. He was a father, 5 kids. He loved his family. He worked his ass off. He was an honest guy. People in the neighborhood would go to him, and they trusted him, and they would go to him in confidence. And and I knew I was never going to be like that. But today, I am that guy. People come to me. The guys I sponsor trust me, unwaveringly. And, I have friends and relationships with, my family that are, second to none. And I cannot take credit for any of that. But all of it could deteriorate in a second. For me, I have a short leash here in AA, and it doesn't take long for me to sort of forget who I am. Mm-hmm. And then that old sort of spiteful tongue comes out, and I say a few words, and I can ruin a relationship in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So it's better, but it's a job that's never done, really, in my opinion.
Yeah. How about you, Karl? How do you take these principles into the other areas of your life, to all areas of your life? What does that look like for you?
It's funny. I read that earlier and I was like, I hope I don't have to share on that. It's
Well, why wouldn't you?
right.
You're not dodging this
now. I
one.
really want to hear it.
Right. I'm really good during the AA meeting, but then the other 23 hours, no. No, I think it happens to you, right? Through the transformation of the 12 steps, through sponsorship, through, watching other people in the rooms and how they're growing and changing, through the relationship that you develop with your higher power, it changes the person that you are, and you become a different person. And so, again, like I said earlier, I can't even, like you said, I can't take credit for this. It's a reflection, I think, of the spiritual transformation that happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so what do I do? I try, I try my best to be honest. I try my best to treat everybody in my life the same. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of, whatever, or if you're the guy, on the side of the street,
Yeah.
Just integrity, that's how I try to carry it. But like you said, there's days, sometimes I shake my head at myself and go, man, I hope nobody from AA saw me just do that. You know what I mean? Because I can go from 0 to 100 really quickly. I have a 16-year-old son, and sometimes he'll do something stupid, and I'll, kind of fly off the handle a little bit, and I'll be like, whoop, I better dial that. Then I got to make an amends to him.
Oh, yeah. Somebody said to me early on, they said the best you'll ever get in AA is human.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes. And
I definitely, when I got sober, I was younger and had this mentality that some of these people maybe, I don't want to say they walked on water, but I just had this idea that I needed to be this superhuman type of person, not realizing that, like you said, the best we're going to get here is human. And a lot of the time for people like us, that's also a good reminder for our egos to stay in check, because we might start thinking we are really better than than regular people, non-alcoholics out there. And it's like, no. You're lucky that I was lucky not to be in a jail cell or to be dead.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I always think about with this is the examples of people in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I was somebody who didn't really know how to live. So, I would see people in AA meetings, they picked up chairs, they made coffee, they talked to other people, they smiled, and I could emulate that, right? I could be that in the meeting. But then I'd go home, I wouldn't do the dishes, I wouldn't really know how to do laundry, I wouldn't treat my family right, I would show up to work late. And then I started to have those examples. I would talk to my sponsor and see other guys living that way outside of meetings. And then I could follow that example, not just in the meeting. And so a big part of this for me, how did I take these principles out? I learned from other people in the program how to be a better person, So I think the thing that's important here for me to remember is that my life doesn't exist just between the time when the meeting is. I have to, one thing that I heard somebody say a long time ago is, would you feel good about your day if there was a camera following you all day, and then that night at the meeting, they just played it for everybody at the AA meeting? How would you feel? And there are days where, like you said, where I'd be like, man, I really would not want this to be put on at the end. And then there are other days where I've been able to have some integrity and
there are more of those days than not.
Nowadays there are, but in the beginning I was not,
No. Yeah.
not living by these principles in all my affairs. So, but like you said, I think a lot of it has come through just simple, working towards a connection with a higher power, working through the steps, being honest, doing those things instead of really
the 12 step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no way you cannot arrive at a place, at least I cannot arrive at a place where I am, illustrating these principles in all of my affairs, not just in the meeting, having not had the transformation as a result of the steps. There's no way. I mean, if I could have done that, why would I be in AA?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if I could fix myself, what the fuck am I doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's no way. And if you're out there and you can do it, maybe you can do it without the steps. And there's a lot of ways to sort of have a spiritual experience. AA doesn't have a lock on that for sure. But for me, this was it.
Yeah. It's worked.
Yeah. For us.
For us, it's worked. So let's move on to the next part of our show. This should be a lot of fun. We're going to get into the newcomer tip of the week.
I like this one this week. This is a good one. I've got some experience with this one.
Oh, look at this guy. What is going on?
What a hero.
Look at that. Yeah. That's a good one, Chris.
Is that a feather or a tree on that arm? I can't. Looks like a pine tree.
Oh, it looks like a pine tree, yeah. It's got, so for those of you who are just listening to the audio, our newcomer on the screen tonight is tatted up guy with a big beard, and he's wearing like a mask, like a superhero mask and a helmet with a cape. So, hey, he's like the super newcomer.
Yeah, super newcomer.
Super newcomer man coming to save the day. He's going to bring all the...
He's like, I know how to do AA.
He's going to bring the energy drinks to the AA electronic or whatever So the tip this week, each meeting has its own format and customs. Don't try and be a hero. And that might seem a little confusing if you're new. I'm going to simplify it by just telling a quick story. I was at a meeting. We were at our meeting last week on a Friday night, and somebody just blurted out in the middle of the meeting. They yelled something out having to do with crack cocaine. It was an interesting... Somebody was sharing something, and then after this person shared, somebody yelled out something kind of responding joke, trying to make a joke in the meeting, and it just didn't go over well.
Major crosstalk.
Yeah, and so I think...
And he asked to buy crack, so it was even weirder.
It did. He said, do you have some crack? It was a weird kind of thing, And so, but I think the point is, I say, don't try to be a hero. I know that I came in, felt like I wanted to make an impression. I felt less than. How could I look cool in front of everybody? Well, let me do this, And I remember I was new, and I was pretty new, and they were having a group conscience at the meeting, and I just felt like I needed to tell them what I thought about this big decision at the meeting, And this was at a large group, hundreds of people. I got up there on the stage, and I was like, let me tell you guys what I think. And I just saw my grand sponsor sitting there, and he was just shaking his head. And I was like, this is probably not a good idea. But if you're new, I guess the point is that all meetings are different. Also, some meetings they chant how it works together. Some meetings they make noises during how it works. Some meetings
crosstalk a lot.
There's crosstalk. Yeah. Some meetings people
candlelight,
whatever it is. Just know if you're new that all meetings are different, and we try to respect the customs of the meeting. Karl, what's your experience? You have any experience with this, with different meetings? You've been around AA for a while. Maybe somebody's not doing it right somewhere.
Well, it's funny because for a long time, I used to think that I had the correct recipe for how to do Alcoholics Anonymous, right? The way we do it in Frederick,
of course.
The way we do the readings, the way we do our format. Top. Exactly. Tank tops, dress code. And, but, I'd go to a meeting out of town somewhere, and I'd go, man, they read something, they read the prologue tonight. What's up, and, or somebody would share something in a meeting, and I'd think, oh, you can't say that in AA. And I used to think it was my job to go tell people what they
did. You?
Oh my God.
Have you done that?
Oh, big time.
Do you have any direct experience, any you can remember that were just, that didn't go that well?
I mean, I've gotten better at it over the years. Yeah. There was a guy in my old home group who was a big Christian guy, which I have no problem with, right?
Yeah, sure.
I go to church,
Yeah.
but I try not to bring that into AA. And he just went off talking about, his religion over and over again.
Yeah.
So I just lovingly went up to him after the meeting and said, hey, man, like, in AA, we kind of just call it God or higher power, and so, but I did tell him, though, you can say whatever you want. There's no AA police.
Yeah.
Right?
You
So,
were the AA police.
I was
You
that
were
day.
undercover, though.
Except for
He was the
Karl.
undercover AA police, though.
No AA, please, except for me.
I love it. I love it. So that's the best, though. No, I heard somebody tell me recently they told somebody's on their phone in the meeting and they said, hey, we don't do that here. Get off your phone in the meeting. And the person was like, I'm going to punch you. They thought the person was going to punch them afterward.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
Things have changed around here a little
You got to
bit,
watch out, man.
That happened in a meeting I was at in Frederick not too long ago, this old timer, and he just went off. He said, everybody's on their phone. Nobody's listening to the meeting. And he went like
On a share, like he was sharing.
for like 5 minutes, and
Wow.
he kept going. And finally people were like, all right, we get the point.
Really?
Like it was bad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you grow up in the AA you grow up in. I mean, it's familiar to you. It's natural to think, oh, this is how AA is done everywhere. And then you go somewhere and you see how diverse AA really is. And I had that opinion. And then I traveled abroad sort of early in sobriety, and I desperately needed a meeting. And I didn't care what, I slid into a weird expat meeting in France, and it was really different than the meetings that I kind of grew up in, but I was so grateful to be there. And after that moment, I never judged the meeting, at least outwardly. I mean, inwardly, I'd be like, I'm probably not going to go back to that meeting. But, but what works for people is great,
Yeah.
I mean, who am I to judge?
Yeah.
And
it doesn't help either. Like I might have an opinion about certain meetings, but I try not to share it, with other people, because I know other people that love that meeting.
Right.
And I don't want to take away from that meeting. I don't want to, and, I heard this a long time ago too. Like, if you go to a treatment center and you got 20 years sober and you bring a guy in that's got 6 months sober, they might not hear a word you say, but they might hear everything that guy with 6 months sober says.
I've been in plenty of meetings where I was shaking my head this way and the other people were shaking their head this way.
Yeah.
Recently, actually, sitting in a meeting and I was shaking my head this way and I looked over and there was a new guy and he was locked in. And I was like, you know what? What the fuck do I know? What
do you know?
What do I know?
What do we know?
Great example. After a meeting one night, we're standing around with some guys and a bunch of guys who were been sober a while, and we didn't necessarily maybe like the speaker who spoke that night, and we were about to say something about that speaker, and a new guy walked up right at that time, and one of us very easily could have said, "Man, that was terrible," and he said, "That was the best talk I've heard. I can't believe how much I related." And if he had walked up and heard us say that was a terrible talk, I don't know what he would have thought.
Yeah.
So
maybe never see him again.
You might never see him again. So who knows?
You just got to be really careful with that stuff,
You do. And I think the point of the tip this week, though, is for if you're new, just know that all meetings are different, and try to
You'll find one that you like.
Yeah. And try to respect whatever's going on in that meeting.
Yeah.
No need to interject, your own idea or concept of how you think this meeting should go.
Yep.
Been around. It's been doing all right before you got there. It's going to be all right after you leave,
Yeah. And if you really want to make a change, be a part of the home group, get a service position and go to the group conscience and do like John did, get up there and speak your mind.
I stopped talking. The second I looked at him and he was shaking his head, I was like, thanks for letting me share. And I just got down and I was like, whew, almost really messed up.
That's right.
All right. So that's the tip. Let's move on to my favorite part here. Let's get into the sketch of the week.
The segment. Ooh.
What is
today?
This?
It's a great day to be amazing.
Motivation. Pass or fail. So tonight's sketch of the week is going to be a little, I guess, a discussion. We're going to put different sobriety. So if you're not, a couple of things. We didn't do this at the beginning, but the meeting after the meeting has some social media handles.
Yep.
One of them, the main one, is on Instagram. What is it, Chris? It's
TMATM Live.
At TMATM Live.
Yep.
And we follow a bunch of different other sobriety kind of motivational things, and we see these different memes. We thought, why not have some of the memes on our show tonight?
Yeah.
And see if we
Not to make fun of them.
No.
No.
See if we think they're motivational or not. Motivational.
Yeah, we're going to look at these through the lens of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, some motivation. I'm not into motivation memes, but some people are. Some people are really into that kind of stuff. They
You've been
print it
calling
out.
them memes all day.
Memes? What is it, memes?
I don't know, Gabe, what is it?
What is it, memes?
What are you? Memes.
Okay, Chris has been
Memes.
calling them memes to me all day. He's like, this mem.
I'm
He's
old,
old.
man.
He's older. Exhibit A.
I'm old.
It's meme?
Meme?
Okay. We're looking at the studio. Is it meme, guys?
Meme.
It's
All
meme.
right.
All right, we're getting a...
Please, please stop.
I just want to make sure. Now, here's another one. Is it GIF or GIF? With the
First one.
GIF.
Dylan said first.
GIF. It's GIF.
That
No,
I know.
GIF.
No, GIF.
GIF is the peanut butter. Okay.
Which is very good.
It's very good. Creamy or crunchy?
Creamy.
Creamy.
Yeah.
Crunchy or creamy
No,
peanut butter?
creamy for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, we're gonna take a look at these through the lens of AA, not to make fun of them, but just we're just gonna look at them.
All right, so first one we got up here. If you are watching, you can see it. If you're just listening, I'm going to read it. It's a little long, this one.
Yeah, this
One's a little long. Remember the sweats. Remember the insomnia. Remember the hangovers. Remember the shakes.
I love this music, by the way.
Remember the lost relationships. Remember the money wasted. Remember the shame and guilt. Remember the time lost. Remember that you are strong. Remember who the fuck you are.
This one's a poem.
I think the book says we can't remember that stuff.
It definitely does say
Right?
that we have the inability to remember,
to recall
the pain and suffering.
That's what the book says.
Karl, what do you think about that one? Is that a pass or a fail for motivation?
I mean, if I remember who the fuck I am before I got sober, that's not good, So I mean, but it could
Can you remember that? Can you remember those things, and does that work for you?
Does that stop you from drinking?
never.
Never. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It would never.
Yeah, I didn't read that. When you read that, I didn't read that and go, ooh,
Yeah.
that fires me up. That makes me want to.
If you could remember that and not drink, then you wouldn't need AA.
Yeah.
I
So-
mean, and maybe some people can, which is good.
Yeah,
So for us, this one, that's a fail.
That's a fail.
It's a fail.
big fail.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take that. Let's put the second one up there. Ooh.
Whoop, there you go.
All right. You realize alcohol is the only thing ruining your life, don't you? Oh, this is another one, Chris.
Tough one.
Chris found these, and I can tell the aim. It's a very similar
tough one.
concept, though,
It's a
to
tough
the
one.
last one. Is out. I don't know. I think that in my experience, I kind of ruined my life.
Right.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Right?
The
I mean,
book says
alcohol wasn't driving that
selfishness
car.
and self-centeredness.
I think for
It's
a
the
long
root of our
time,
troubles.
I thought that alcohol was the problem.
Right. Yeah.
And then I got sober.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap.
Right.
I'm a disaster.
So it sounds like sometimes we need to get sober before we realize alcohol isn't the only thing ruining our life.
yeah.
But in all fairness, if you're a heavy drinker, which is different than an alcoholic,
Amen.
then
Yeah.
alcohol could be doing some damage to you. I mean, I want to be fair to some of these memes.
Yeah.
You know
There
what I
you
mean?
go.
There you go,
Because
Chris. Look at
not
you.
everyone's an alcoholic of our type. You know what I mean? And alcohol, they could shut it down a little bit or moderate, and maybe their life will improve.
Yeah. So
That's a fail.
we're failing. This is a fail too.
Well, yeah, wait.
It can't-
terms of AA. I mean,
I'm just sitting here disagreeing, dude.
Whoa.
I'm just sitting here. Just
Gabe,
like
all
shaking
right.
my head.
Let's hear it.
Maybe
Let's
it's
hear it
just
from the young. Let's hear it from
Yes,
the
maybe
young
It's just
guy.
the semi-newcomer in me. I don't know, but I feel like, when you come into Alcoholics Anonymous because you think alcohol is the problem. I mean, you learn that it isn't, right? But, I mean, getting your foot through the door, kind of similar to the other one, right? The one before. It's like, yeah, we don't remember, but when we help new people, right, that helps us remember, dude. We think we don't want to be like that, so.
Okay, I like it.
Maybe the poem isn't what's going to remind you, but, 12th step it might.
I like it, and it does say that alcohol is but a symptom. Our bottles are a symptom of our alcoholism. So, all right, well.
But I see Gabe's point.
I do. I don't agree with him, but I don't
That's
agree.
okay. That's okay.
I'm glad that we're having a little bit of a, we need the opposing point, Gabe.
We do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's bring up the next one. Ooh. What?
This is a good one.
Changed behavior is the only real apology.
I agree.
Karl, what do you think?
I like it,
Yeah.
but I don't believe that it's the only real apology.
I'm with you on
was taught that you need to make direct amends to people that you harmed.
But what is a direct amend if you haven't changed your behavior?
Right. You have to have both.
What is it, like the chicken or the egg, dude? What comes first?
I'm just saying.
No, I agree.
I'm just saying.
I know what you mean.
You can't. I could not go and make a direct amends to my mother, for instance, until I should change the way I was living. Like
Okay.
she was never going to see the apology or the amends if I was still living the way I was living. So really, in the end, what made that possible was the change in behavior.
What if I told you that I didn't sit down and have a talk with my mother, my father, or my brother and make amends because changed behavior was the only real apology I needed to make? Would you
Seems
say
like you need
that was
both.
okay?
It seems like you need both.
I would say to your brother or your mother, it wouldn't have mattered because they would have known in their heart that you were a different person.
Whoa, I don't know about that. I mean, you're basically arguing the ninth step. So I don't know.
Well, listen. When you made direct amends to your brother, what did he say?
You're pulling from my story. He said to me, he basically said, "You already changed. You don't need to say that." Now, I get that. I get what you're saying, but I still think it needed to be said, and I think it needs to be said sometimes. I'm not saying everybody, but
I like that meme because it focused on the real change that's necessary in making amends. So
we're going to call it a fail, I think. I'm going to call it a fail. You're going to...
I'm going to go with Chris on this one. It's a pass.
You're going to go pass? Karl?
I don't know. It's 50-50. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you need the change in behavior to make
I'm not saying you don't need to make the direct amends, but
Karl?
the real change, the real amends.
Are you with me?
Change
I'm with
behavior.
John.
Yes.
I call it a fail. I mean, I
All
like
right, let's
it.
go to the studio audience. Pass or fail?
They're not. No,
Justin, all
no
right,
one's going
we
to
got a
agree
fail.
with me over there.
Pass or... so we're split.
Wow.
We're split. Okay.
Decision.
We have somebody online who can give us a tiebreaker. Can we just get a chat in? Anybody? Somebody chat in. The chat's up.
Yeah, chat's
Pass or fail, guys.
Pass or fail. James. Michael.
Oh, they didn't turn on the chat. There we go. Now you're getting the insider.
Let's see what they say.
I don't know if it's gonna work. I feel like that we still have to like give some sort of permissions, but I don't see it here in the more menu.
All right. Well, that's fine.
All right.
I think there's a way you guys can message me directly, but not in like the group chat. So
I'm sure your
give it a try.
sponsor, John, he'll weigh in on this one. Heavily.
Let's move on to the next one. We're going to just do one more here. Getting sober meant I had to learn to love myself instead of wanting to escape myself.
Cool, bro.
Gabe, what do you think?
Very cool.
Yeah?
Yeah, really deep.
I kind of like this one a little bit because the fact that here's the thing. I used alcohol to run away from the way I was living and the way I treated people. And I don't necessarily agree with the way this is stated, but I get that when I got sober, changing some actions that I took, a big part of them was making amends to people, actually telling them that I was wrong, helped me to learn to not want to run away and escape and to be okay with who I am.
Let's assume getting sober means taking the steps. And if by taking the steps, I have come to a place where I do love myself, who I am today,
Yeah.
then I am no longer wanting to shut the door on the past. You know, all that. Yeah, I mean, those promises have come true in my life.
I like this one the best out of all of them, actually.
Yeah.
Carl?
If I saw that on my Instagram feed, I would hit the like button.
Yeah, you'd hit the like. Okay. So we got some likes going on.
Do you like it or heart it?
I would heart it because you can't
that's
like
a
it. on
Yeah, that's a like, a heart.
Yeah.
Exhibit C. To Chris's age.
This is true. He's like, do you like it? I'm like, there's just a heart.
It's all Facebook
He was
to
a young
Chris.
guy. That wasn't me. I didn't say that.
Facebook.
It's all Facebook to
No,
me,
you said,
boys.
did you like it? And he said, I hearted it. That's what it is on Instagram.
okay.
But all right, well, so we're gonna keep that one. We're gonna pass
Yeah,
that.
I'll pass it.
Pass it.
Yeah, I'll pass it.
Yeah, it's a pass.
Gabe.
Yeah, I'll pass it. It's
Okay.
a little funny how it's said, but it's
It
true.
is. I like it. All right. Well, I think
Was that it?
that's it. We're gonna stop it there. That was our sketch of the week, motivation, pass or fail. I hope you
Wasn't bad.
Hope you liked it.
It was good.
We want to thank our guest Karl O for coming out.
Yes,
and
thank you.
bringing it tonight. You did a great job, man.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
it's really
rocking
good
that
to-
tank top,
Yeah,
man.
Absolutely.
doing
Solid.
that. Loved hearing your experience. Been a great to hang with you and do this AA thing with you. Want to thank everybody for listening tonight or for joining us. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you. You can catch the meeting after the meeting on all streaming platforms. We'll be back next week. We've got another great guest, another great episode. Thank you.
Thanks.